بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله محمد.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Abu Hanifa innovated the subheadings of fiqh. As-Suyuti said that Abu Hanifa was the first in Islam to organize the writing of fiqh under subheadings embracing the whole of the law, beginning with purity, followed by prayer, and order which was retained by all subsequent scholars such as Malik, Ash-Shafi'i, Abu Dawood, Al-Bukhari, Muslim, At-Tirmidhi, and others. All these and their followers are indebted to him and give him a share of their reward because he was the first to open the road for them. According to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he who starts something good in Islam has its reward and the reward of those who practice it until the Day of Judgment, without lessening in the least the reward of those who practice it. The one who starts something bad in Islam will incur its punishment and the punishment of all those who practice it until the Day of Judgment, without lessening their punishment in the least. Sufyan al-Thawri's awe before Abu Hanifa. Although he had felt acrimony towards Abu Hanifa at first, Sufyan al-Thawri later said, "We were in front of Abu Hanifa like small birds in front of the falcon. He stood up for him when Abu Hanifa visited him after his brother's death, saying, 'This man holds a high rank in knowledge, and if I did not stand up for his science, I would stand up for his age, and if not for his age, then for his God-wariness, and if not for his God-wariness, then for his jurisprudence.'" Ibn Jurayj's praise of Abu Hanifa. Rawh ibn Ubadah said, "I was with Ibn Jurayj in the year 150 when the news of Abu Hanifa's death reached him. He winced and pain seized him. He said, 'Knowledge has departed.' Ibn Jurayj died that same year." Ibn al-Mubarak's praise and vindication of Abu Hanifa. Ibn al-Mubarak praised Abu Hanifa and called him a sign of Allah. Both al-Thawri and Ibn al-Mubarak said Abu Hanifa was in his time the most knowledgeable of all people on earth. Abu Wahab, Muhammad ibn Muzahim, said that he heard Ibn al-Mubarak say, "The most knowledgeable of human beings in fiqh is Abu Hanifa. I have never seen anyone like him in fiqh." Ibn Hajar also related that Ibn al-Mubarak said, "If Allah had not rescued me with Abu Hanifa and Sufyan al-Thawri, I would have been like the rest of the common people." Al-Dhahabi relates it as, "I would have been an innovator." Like every friend of Allah, Abu Hanifa had his enemies. Abdan said that he heard Ibn al-Mubarak say, "If you hear them mention Abu Hanifa derogatively, then they are mentioning me derogatively. In truth, I fear for them divine displeasure." Hamid ibn Adam al-Marwazi said, "I heard Ibn al-Mubarak say, I never saw anyone more fearful of Allah than Abu Hanifa, even on trial under the whip and through money and property." Ibn al-Mubarak relates his visit to Al-Awza'i in Beirut and the latter's question about Abu Hanifa. Khurasani, who is that innovator who came out of Al-Kufa, known as Abu Hanifa? I went back home and pored over the books of Abu Hanifa, extracting from them several outstanding discussions, which took me 3 days. The third day I came back. He was the mu'adhin as well as the imam of their mosque in Beirut, with the book of excerpts in my hand. He asked, "What book is this?" I handed it to him. He read one of its discussions at random. He kept on reading as he was standing. After raising the adhan until he read the first part of the book. Then he placed the book in his sleeve, raised the iqama, prayed, and brought out the book again. He said, Khurasani, who is Al-Nu'man ibn Thabit? I said, a sheikh I met in Iraq. He said, this is a grand master. Go to him and take as much as you can from him. I said, this is Abu Hanifa. You forbade me to see.
Jazakallah khairan, Muhammad.
ويكون وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد.
It is similarly reported that Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu wrote down the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Juhayfa has thus stated that I asked Ali radiallahu anhu, do you have anything written with you? And he said, no, except for the book of God. Or what is in this sahifa? I asked, what is in this sahifa then? He said, it is about blood money, release of war prisoners, and the hadith to the effect that a Muslim is not executed for killing a disbeliever. Another well-known document, and probably the earliest on record, was the Constitution of Medina, Dustur al-Madina, also known as Sahifat al-Madina, which was written in the first year of the Hijrah. This document is concerned mainly with relations among the three major groups of Medina, namely the migrants, the helpers, and the Jews, which forged unity between them all and declared them as one ummah community to the exclusion of others. This document actually begins with the phrase, this is a document, kitab, and that document, which is spelled out in 47 articles, has survived in its original form and is sufficiently well known to be ranked as hadith mutawatir. Moreover, the prominent companion Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma wrote the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his sunnah on plates which he used to carry to his teaching circles. One of his students, Sa'id ibn Jubair, also wrote from his teacher, and in the course of the time, the collection of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma became well known, and many of the hadith reports that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma transmitted were based on his written records. Another prominent figure among the companions, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, is also reported to have documented hadith in the Sahifa, which he used to carry with him and showed it to the people he met. The Sahifa collection of Hammam ibn Munabbih, a disciple of Abu Huraira, radiallahu anhu, consists of a hadith that Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrated and has actually attributed it to his teacher. This collection, also known as As-Sahifa As-Sahiha, has survived and has been documented by Muhammad Hamidullah from the two near identical manuscripts that he obtained in Damascus and Berlin respectively. It has also been documented in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Subhi as-Salih has concluded, however, that Hammam wrote the collection after the Prophet ﷺ's demise, as he was born in the year 40 Hijrah, and his teacher Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu died in the year 58 Hijrah. Thus, it is likely that Hammam's collection was written around the mid-1st century Hijrah. This collection contains 138 ahadith and is indicative of the high level of care and accuracy that Hammam gave to the content of the hadith which he recorded. Subhi as-Salih thus concluded from the evidence he has discussed that the hadith writing began at a very early stage, that is, during the Prophet ﷺ's lifetime, and not, as many Orientalists have held, at the beginning of the 2nd century Hijrah. Another contemporary author, Umar Hashim, has quoted Abu al-Hasan al-Nadwi and Ahsan al-Kailani in support of his own conclusion that if these early collections of hadith are put together, they would comprise the greater part of the ahadith that were subsequently compiled in the larger collections during the 3rd century Hijrah. The fact that only the subsequent collections became well known is due largely to their superior methods of compilation. These later collections showed a distinct improvement in terms of classification and consolidation of themes over the earlier collections, which consisted of unclassified ahadith that were simply put together. This situation is seen as a contributing factor to the Orientalists' assertion that hadith began to be written and compiled only in the 2nd century. Even the history books began to mention only leading works and compilations of the subsequent period and almost totally ignored the earlier collections. Another factor that contributed to this misgiving is the somewhat exaggerated references by the authors of subsequent works to hadith collections, citing figures in the order of hundreds of thousands of hadith, which somehow overshadowed and minusculed the significance of the earlier collections. It is remarkable to hear that Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal collected 700,000 ahadith, and similar figures are mentioned in conjunction with the works of the two leading scholars of hadith, Al-Bukhari and Muslim. It may be that these figures consisted mainly of the number of reports and reporters rather than of actual hadith, for the hadith إنما الأعمال بالنيات alone has been transmitted through 700 channels. If we were to eliminate number of hadith, we would have a much smaller number of ahadith left that may or may not exceed 10,000 in number. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد. بسم الله الرحمن.
Narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to recite the following in the Fajr prayer of Friday. Alif Lam Mim Tanzil, Surah Sajda 32, and Hal Ata ala al-insani hinum min ad-dahr. Abu Hurairah 76. Abu Hurairah said, God's messenger recited in both rak'ah of the dawn prayer, say, O unbelievers, 99, and say he is God and one God, 112. The order and arrangement was of course well known to the Muslims due to the daily recitation of the Quran in the prayers at the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ and at other places. Finally, there are 3 ahadith in Sahih Bukhari informing us that the angel Jibreel alayhi salam used to recite the Quran with the Prophet ﷺ once a year, but he recited twice with him in the year he died. The Prophet ﷺ used to stay in i'tikaf for 10 days every year in the month of Ramadan, but in the year of his death, he stayed in i'tikaf for 20 days. We can therefore distinguish the following measures which ensured the collection of the revelation in writing during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. Revelation used to be written down even in the very early days of the Prophet ﷺ's call. In Medina, the Prophet ﷺ had several persons who wrote down revelation when it was revealed. The Prophet ﷺ himself instructed his scribes as to where the different revealed verses should be placed, and thus determined the order and arrangement. This order and arrangement was well known to the Muslims and strictly observed by them. The angel Jibreel alayhi salam went through all the revelation with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam each year in Ramadan, and went through it twice in the year the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died. There are numerous reports about the existence of the written Quran in the form of a book or piece of writing, kitab, during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam leave behind? The way the material of revelation was left by the Prophet ﷺ at his death was the most suitable for the companions in that all parts of the revelation were available both in written form and memorized by the companions. All pieces were available on loose writing material, making it easy to arrange them in the proper order. The order already fixed of the ayah within the surah in the written form, as well as in the memory of the companions, and of the surah in the memory of the companions. What arrangement could have been better than to have everything to hand in written form as well as memorized by the Muslims, and to have the order and arrangement already determined, partially in the written form and completely in the memories of the people. It is for these reasons that a later scholar, Al-Harith al-Muhasibi, in his book Kitab Faham as-Sunnah, summarized the first phase of the written collection of the Quranic material in the following words: Writing of the Quran was no novelty, for the Prophet ﷺ used to order that it be written down, but it was in separate pieces on scraps of leather, shoulder blades, and palm risp. And when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu ordered that it be copied from the various places to a common place, which was in the shape of sheets, these materials were found in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, in which the Quran was spread out. And he gathered it all together and tied it with a string so that nothing of it was lost. Text cannot be compared with that of other holy scriptures. While the books of the Old and New Testaments, for example, were written, edited, and compiled over long periods, sometimes centuries, the text of the Quran, once revelation had ceased, has remained the same to this day.
جزاك الله خير
عليكم
محمد
صلى
وصلى
الله عليه
الله
وسلم.
على سيدنا محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.